Hey everybody, welcome back to Tavern Talks. This is the show where we interview guests all around the world, especially tonight, and we ask them fun questions about tabletop. And we sit here like a bunch of goofballs and drink and have a good time. Tonight, once again, we have a new guest, and there's my music finally kicking off. Thank you. And yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. As always, if you're new to the show, make sure that if you have any questions, drop those in the channel, and that way we can answer those as we're talking. But yeah, we're gonna start this off real easy. I'm just gonna kind of give you a chance to talk about yourself for a moment. Tell us who you are, what you're doing down there in RPG in the jungle, and we'll start asking some fun questions. So, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks. So I'm Andy. I'm our resident GM here down in the Amazon jungle of Peru, and founding member, along with my buddy Benji here, of Fantasyscaping Designs, an immersive fantasy environment creation company where we make places like this, which we'll be talking to you about tonight a little bit, and also RPG in the Jungle, which is our vacation RPG event company where we throw the most kick-ass RPG location events on Earth. So we are a couple of guys living down here in community in Peru. We've been down here in the Amazon jungle for years, building, creating, and living a pretty unique life that you don't kind of hear about every day. We can dig into that if you like in a bit. I'm originally from Australia, but been living here in Peru for over 7 years now with my wife, our new little baby, and 13 of us in total living here on site. So yeah, I had to think for a second. There's tons of us.
All from Australia, or like did you all just pick up and move?
Nope. I'm technically Australian. My passport says Australian, but I grew up in New Zealand.
Okay.
And I've kind of lived all over. Before I landed here, I was a bit of a traveler. A lot of time in Europe and Southeast Asia and dotting around the globe, exploring. But Peru is home. This is where I've landed, and I'm making a home. Benji, for example, not from Australia. Where are you from, Benji?
Not at all. So you were hippie scum, but now you're cool.
Wow, I'm still. At least part of me.
I am from Nova Scotia, Canada.
Okay.
I've been bombing around everywhere for a very, very long time as well. But the most interesting of my adventures has taken me here in Peru, where, I mean, your audience is a bunch of fantasy aficionados. We live a real life fantasy adventure down here, and that's from living directly in the middle of the jungle and getting to create our own community and our own little paradise down here, to what we're doing now with RPG in the jungle and our sculptures, and trying to, you know, welcome more people to come experience this and how cool it is. But yeah, basically we get to live our own fantasy heroic adventure in our real lives, and we think that's just about the coolest thing in the world, and that's why we're excited to chat with you guys tonight about it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's crazy that you guys have been able to establish that.
It's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's neat to hear too that this is not just one area or one group of people. Like, you've all come together in that community as well. I'm curious, how many cultures do you have within the community?
Ooh, We're an eclectic bunch. We've got a couple Belgians, a French, a couple of Australians, a couple of Romanians,
Persian.
an Iranian girl who's sort of half Iranian, half Californian, a Swedish, my wife is Swedish. We are from all around the
Wow.
place, which is really cool because we all come from different walks of life, totally different backstories,
Yeah.
Yeah.
different backgrounds. And I think that really gives us a kind of strength where we cover each other's gaps. You know,
Sure.
we're really
Yeah.
an eclectic bunch. We weren't all RPG nerds in the beginning. I had to infect everybody.
It only takes one.
It only takes one.
It's very
Yeah.
contagious.
It's
Yeah.
very contagious.
So yeah, we represent at least 7, 8 cultures, something like that. And we also have a lot of interaction with the local culture as well. There are no Peruvian native people living in our community, except for our children, who are Peruvian, of course. They were born here. But we have relationships with lots of people in the nearby villages and stuff who are our friends, our employees, and it's really cool to be in that South American culture as well, which is very different to what most of us grew up with, and something we really enjoy too.
Yeah, we've had some parties with these guys, and they have such this light, joyful innocence to them when they're playing music and dancing around, and we get a giant bonfire going. We got a stage with all kinds of live instruments set up, and people from all over the world can jump up, grab an instrument, and play something. But the Peruvians are super cool. They play like this song Anaconda, and everyone goes around in this circle, and it's
so cool.
awesome.
It's so
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a blast. Definitely something to want to at least achieve once in life, if not more than once. But it's interesting to think with all of those cultures together, what kind of games you're playing too, because you don't see that a lot either. So everybody's coming with different backgrounds, with different stories. It'd be interesting to hear what a normal, I mean, as normal as it could be, game looks like with that many cultures blended together at all times.
Well, that's evolved over time. Because we came together, I'm a fantasy nerd from way back, and I think a few of us were in the novel reading sense as kids, but I've been playing some version of a D20 something, not tabletop necessarily, but games back on my old Macintosh when I was a little kid trying to find stuff to do, where I was very familiar with kind of how all of that works. But in the beginning, as I was kind of convincing everybody to join in, it was a little awkward and a little clunky maybe. But these days, what's happened that's been super magical is we've started to really focus in on the emotion in creating moments that connect to our real life evolution. So there are many facets to what we do down here. The sculpting is one, and we sculpt these huge public sculptures, many sort of like high fantasy style, like the Citadel we sit in now, but many other kinds as well. We have a retreat center here, and we also have RPG in the Jungle specific sort of RPG events. We also host workshops. And so everybody who lives here is somebody that's very interested also in personal development. We all came here through a desire to understand ourselves better, to free ourselves from some of our limiting beliefs and these kind of things. And it's really a guiding force in the way that we live our lives. We try to be as self-aware and as harmonious and healthy as a community as possible. And that has filtered down into our game. So something really special happened a few years ago. Back when we used to play 5th edition, we don't play 5e anymore. But I was running a game for a few members of the community, and just organically through gameplay, I was running sort of side quests for each of my characters, celebrating their backstories and kind of enriching the game in that way. And what ended up happening was, for one of my players, he turned a huge corner in his real life directly through the game, where he was able to rise up against his uncle who had thrown down his father many years prior and had been dominating his tribe, and he ran away when he was a young man. But he was able to grow in wisdom and strength and decided to return to his tribe to restore wise leadership and to reclaim a part of himself. And what happened through that process, as he ended up challenging his uncle and reclaiming his heritage and bringing a future back to his tribe, something clicked inside of himself. And he was somebody who had been trying within himself for many years to truly choose a home, and had been struggling with an inability to really feel at home anywhere. And it was a big challenge in his life. And through action at the table and being able to reclaim his place in the world there and take a position of leadership and put himself in a position where he was critical to the future of his tribe, he actually made that same step in his everyday life. And that really, like, that was the first time I really just fell apart into tears at the table. I didn't really understand what was happening at the time. The emotion was huge at the table.
Oh, I bet.
And as he scooped up the gauntlets that represented like the sort of leadership of his tribe and put them on, he started crying, and I'm getting emotional just thinking about it now. I started crying with him, and we had this moment where I really was just blown away. I couldn't understand what was happening. And as I saw him stepping into his power in his day-to-day life in the weeks following, I had this kind of realization, like, whoa, this is not just a game.
Oh yeah, no.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't ever made that connection before. I'd played a lot of computer RPGs and things like solo mission stuff, not with other people, and I found this magical thing. And so we've been, over the interceding years, trying to find ways to cultivate that personal connection to your character, so that as we move through an adventure and I present challenges to you that are directly related to your path in life, that we can not just be acting out things at the table, but be living them fully. Mm. So a typical game session for us now is a combination of just super rowdy fun, because we're quite a rowdy bunch, and these moments dotted through that make you really pause and feel what's happening and feel each other's characters in a way that continues to boggle my mind as we become more proficient and deeper in that really releasing into the space and allowing ourselves to be carried away by what's happening. And that it presents a unique challenge for me as the game master to be creating those moments for my players to be able to express themselves in and feel that they can be that vulnerable and really allow the moments to affect them deeply. And really just trusting the players at the table as well, that it's not about me. I used to believe that I needed to create everything at the table and provide the full experience, almost like I'm the director, the actor, the hype man for the show that everybody's watching. And what I've realized is that's not my role. My role is to provide a beautiful canvas for everybody to paint on and to emotionally paint on where they feel comfortable and happy doing that. So it's become a lot more juicy in recent times.
That's awesome.
And I got to say, our last event in February, we had Jason Azevedo down here from Realmsmith, superb game master. He came down and ran a table, a week-long event here. We hosted an amazing group of people, and really seeing the way that he holds his space taught me a lot. And the emotional power and rawness at that table was such that it just inspired me for a new burst
Mm.
to really find new deep ways to inspire that kind of openness and connection at the table. So, whew, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. We get deep tonight. I love it.
I don't know.
Yes.
Maybe Benji has a different perspective because he's sitting on the other side. Of course, he's one of my most devoted and energetic players. He's always looking for ways to spice it up and bring it deeper. And I don't know. Maybe he has a different perspective.
Well, I know my experience through playing Angus, who is this super handsome half orc over here. He's, what I realized through playing him is I can actually use my fantasy character to step outside of myself and embrace qualities that I want to work on as a man in my own personal life. And it takes me one step out of myself, past all my resistances to this, and allows me to just flourish into this character by pushing into a role-playing experience. And this is a concept me and Andy have spent many late nights sitting around talking about, like, shit, let's develop this. Like, RPG in the jungle can be a whole different experience for people where it's not just this tabletop role-playing experience, but we can start to work in some of the transformational personal work that we do here and we're specialists in into the game and into people that come to visit us, where we can start to weave in elements of their personal lives into the characters they develop and create an immersive experience. Like even what Jason did with the narrative leveling up, like, oh, we've got such cool plans for this thing.
Yeah.
And we've got the coolest canvas in the world, like being able to take characters, say they're leveling up, and we take them up to like a bonfire in the jungle, and there's a wizard there that they'll need to do some sort of quest in real life to actually level their characters up in the game. The ideas are endless, but we're starting to weave together a lot of different elements, and I don't know, it just keeps getting more and more magical. We are on a wild ride right now, and it just keeps getting better. So
Hold on tight, right? Just see how far the ride goes. So we're kind of diving into some of those first questions we ask every single guest right now, and it's really cool to see this transformational idea that you have built around this retreat and tabletop. What I want to do now is I want to kind of pull us back to the beginning. So I ask every guest 3 questions, and these 3 questions will kind of answer some of this why you are stepping to this point now. And the first one is, when did you start playing tabletop?
Oh, okay. So this, I think, for a lot of people, have the same answer actually, because it was triggered by COVID.
Mm.
So I have a long history of RPG play. Like I mean, when I was a kid, you couldn't tear me away from Final Fantasy with a crowbar. But but I really, although I've been sort of like right on the edge of the TTRPG space for years and kind of peering in now and then as a window would open, I never had an environment around me when I was younger that knew anything about it. I grew up in New Zealand, small country, modern country. Sure, there's people playing there, but with so few people, the country's only a few million people. Just the chances you get exposed to it are not very high. And we had a friend of ours from Canada who was visiting at the time, and COVID comes down, he gets stuck with us. Pretty great place to get stuck, I think.
Like, oh darn, stuck in the jungles of Peru? Like, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, we haven't even told you what this place is like yet. Oh my God, wow. Later.
Later.
He had mentioned once or twice that he had a group back in Vancouver that he played with, and it piqued my interest a bit. And a couple of days after we got locked down, I said to him around the breakfast table, like, "Hey man, like, have you ever game mastered?" He said, "No." I said, but could you?" I guess. Would you? Sure. So he jumped in, he ran a few sessions for us. I immediately felt that I wanted to run the game. In the beginning, it was just so fascinating to me, this whole idea that you can go anywhere and do anything. And he was a little bit of a reluctant GM. He did it first because we were locked down and he wanted to sort of give us that experience, but he prefers to be a player. And so I took my first opportunity and jumped in and started running the Lost Mine of Phandelver.
A nice little adventure.
Immediately started messing with it and pulling it apart and sticking it back together again. And the rest is history. So it's not an incredibly long history in the space, but I can tell you the moment that I caught the bug, I started devouring hundreds of hours of content. I went immediately through all of Critical Role right up to the current moment at the time, and then just jumped straight away to the next thing I could find. Adventure Zone, the Glass Cannon guys. I just boom, jumping from creator to creator, absorbing everything I could wring out of any GM I could find that excited me. And then I started infecting everybody here with the bug. So for all of us, it's basically since COVID, right? Or shortly after, as I managed to rope more and more people in. Yeah. So I think what we lack in years, we make up for in fanatical passion.
I mean, we built a giant castle and all kinds of sculptures just so we could play in it. So
yeah,
fanatical.
It looks like it bit y'all hard.
Yeah, we're currently sitting in a custom sculpted gaming dungeon citadel with a functional drawbridge and a real fire-breathing dragon on top. So if that doesn't tell you how crazy we are about this stuff, nothing will.
When they say dive in they're like, jump in the deep end. They're like, no, we're going straight ocean. Like, we're past the deep end.
Can we go to outer space?
Is it possible? Can I hit the bottom of the world this way? I don't know. We'll figure it out. That's awesome. And I think one of the cool opportunities you have in the location that you're at is that this immediately became almost a catalyst for everything. And that to me is incredible to even think that that's a possibility. What you've created in a very short period of time, most people wouldn't have thought was even possible 20, 30 years of taking time. So
you're bang on there. You're bang on. Where when we tell people, oh yeah, we live in a community in the Amazon, in Peru, they just think we must be a bunch of like weed smoking hippies that lay around in hammocks playing guitars all day and just avoiding life or something. That couldn't be further from the truth. We work hard and we really love what we do. So what we found is, and it's also connected to that sort of personal development work we're talking about, that if you really set yourself to something, you will blow your own mind at what's possible. And so in just over a decade, we've built an entire village here. We've got structures you wouldn't believe, built with no technology. Huge 140-seat amphitheater in the shape of a broken egg, built without a single piece of machinery. And that sort of thing goes many, many meters up into the air. The Citadel itself, like this, every square inch of this place is hand sculpted and crafted, from every brick in the wall to the characters that are all around this room, to the dragon on the roof, to the beholder that hangs over the table, shooting fire rays out. All of it is just, it's pure passion and energy. And it's something that we're constantly pushing each other and motivating each other and sort of daring ourselves to do more, squeeze more out of life. And I think that when you come here, you can feel that.
Well, look, I'd like to share a little bit about my story, because when I was a kid, I had an uncle who was into Dungeons and Dragons, and I remember being like 8, 9, 10 years old, and he had every single monster manual, all the dungeon master's guides, and I would dive through these books and read them like they were crazy. I would create characters. I went to a couple games when I was a kid and played there. And then, you become a teenager and you kind of forget about all those things you're super passionate about. Like I'm looking at the shirt you're wearing and I recognize it instantly because it's the
Yep.
first book I ever read. I was probably like 6, 7, something like that. And I had this giant furnace blazing in me when I was that young about all this stuff. Then you become a teenager, you're going to school, you're trying to wheel girls, you're experimenting with everything. And then you become a young man and you're trying to build a life for yourself and you're working here and there and you forget about all this stuff, right? It gets pushed to the side. And what was so cool about it was I was actually living in California at the time, and I had lived here previously to this, but I flew in to see all these guys. And Andy's running this game. He's like, "You want to play D&D with us this weekend?" I was like, "Shit, yeah, I kind of remember something about that." And the second I sat down at the table, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever experienced. Andy rocked it. He's like an awesome, awesome dungeon master. I had the time of my life, and then I had to fly away and was gone for like another year. I was like, oh, you know.
You had
And
the
then we
itch.
come back and we decide to build like I moved back to the jungle. We decide to build this citadel, and it felt like this entire huge energy that was inside me as a child just got lit up again as a grown man who can now build things and do stuff and is competent and capable. But now I've got 13 other people who are all super passionate about this, and they're all wild artists, and they're all builders, and they're all creative, and everyone's like superhumans down here. And we decide to go for this thing, and it's just like this collective dream of ours. And we put it all together and we start building it, but then we build it, right? And we
Mhm.
sit down at this beautiful table that we've built. We're looking at the sculptures of our characters that we get to play in the game, and we're all in awe. Like, what did we just do? This place is so unbelievably magical. Like, we've just made a dream come true. And then we start talking about, okay, well, shit, we should like bring some people down here to experience this with us. And it's just opened up 5,000 new doors. Like me and Andy have spent night after night sitting around this table coming up with cool ideas of what we want to build for the future. And we're basically in the business of making our wildest dreams come true and see how far we can push everything.
The hell of a
And that's how
business.
this
It's a
got
hell of a
built.
business, and apparently it's
Yeah,
working.
yeah,
It's,
that's
it's not like
that's where we're heading.
it's not like and it was funny when we got a chance to talk last night as well, where this isn't just you came down there and you all came with something, and then all of a sudden you guys were like, oh no, this is what we're gonna build and we're done. No, it's like every year you're coming up with something new and new and newer and newer. Um, and it feels like at this point the snowball effect has kicked in, right? So now it's, well, when you have an idea, well, I'm going to jump on top of it, and I'm going to jump on top of this, and then all of a sudden you do what we do in gaming, is you start collaborating to a point where it's not your idea anymore, it's a collective idea. And that is one of the coolest things I think that tabletop does for people, is it gets you back into that mindset of, I don't have to do this myself, right? um, and to kind of hit on your point, Andy, that that you were talking about earlier, there are other ways to run games now than having to do everything yourself. You don't have to be the director all the time. You don't have to be the storyteller all the time. I mean, we've been doing a project with that we've talked about a couple times since then, where I had a sentence that I was going to start with, and if I had questions, I asked the players. and the players wrote the story for me. I sat back and went, okay, let me take these notes down, let me make these notes down, and then when they start tying together, then you bring the story together. But I threw Chuck straight into a into one of those projects when he didn't even know what was going to happen. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you can take his advice or his word from it. You enjoyed it though.
Oh
You
no,
know,
I totally loved it. And you're talking about our home game, I'm sure.
yeah, I'm talking about our home game.
Yeah, so what he's talking about was there was a point. Yeah, we're all like it's me and our kids. We're all playing, and I'm the adult character trying to like corral the kids essentially, be the cat herder. Um, Shocker. But we get to a point where my daughter finds a journal and I start reading it, or her character finds a journal and I start reading it because she couldn't read it for didn't roll high enough to read it, and I start reading it, and I look at James like, all right, I'm going to read the journal, and he looks at me like, well, what does it say? Like, I don't know. You tell what? You tell me. He's like, no, no. You tell me what's in the journal. I'm like, oh shit. All right, here we go. It was great.
Johnny on the spot.
Yeah. And I've learned very quickly though that it gets the players invested immediately because now
Mm,
they're writing their story, right? This isn't just me telling the story that they've written. This is them writing their own story right in front of us. And things like if I ever, and I know this is something that we haven't even talked about yet, but if I ever attack the monastery, what would that mean to Chuck's character? But not only that, but what would that mean to Chuck? Because he literally designed how the monastery was built.
mhm,
So, what's your investment at that point? It's so much more than the old adage of the big bad is going to come do something. You need to defeat it so that you can move on to the next step.
mm.
There's more to it now, and the storytelling aspect is what has, I think, driven this vehicle so much farther than it was years ago.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, one quick side thing, I'm very jealous of you that you get to play with your kids. I'm still quite a few years away from that. My little boy's not even one yet, but I'm really excited for
Soon
that
enough.
reality.
Three, you can start
Three's
at three.
three's a good time to start. All right, cool.
Um,
Hand-eye coordination to throw a die. That's all we
That's
need.
it.
so I ran a what I thought was going to be a 45-minute game with my 6-year-old and my 10-year-old. My 10-year-old's been playing for 3 years now, full D&D. He doesn't do any of the and I took D&D away from him, and he was so mad at me because we had to dumb it down for my 6-year-old. And I found a very simple sheet online, and it said weapon, skill, second weapon. I went, okay, cool. And I grabbed 3 dice and I sat them in each one of the little square spots. And I said, okay, if you have something you want to do, you roll that die. If you have something you want to hit, you roll that die. And if you can't hit it with that one, you roll that die. That's it. Go. And I thought it was going to be a 45-minute session. We played for 2.5 hours and they didn't want to stop. And I was like,
Amazing.
I don't have any more of the story left. Like, I was like, we got to stop. It's almost bedtime. They're like, no, no, no. We want to play. Um, And I think when you do that for children, you start to see that same motive, that same mentality you hit during COVID. I can do anything. This isn't just I walk here, I pick the item up, I put it in my bag. I walked here, I pick the item up, I put it in my bag. I collect 16 items. I go to this guy, I give him these 16 items, and he gives me a reward. No, no, no. There's more to it. And watching my 6-year-old and my 10-year-old, who 90% of the time don't get along, work together to come up with how they're going to defeat the tentacle monster that's coming out of the ground, trying to pull them underneath into the water. And he's like, no, no, I'm going to swim down there and we're going to cut it. And then you're going to run. And my 6-year-old's like, yeah, but I can do this, this, and this too. And he's like, okay. And just watching them combined work together, I was like,
Wow.
this is new. um, and we made a whole day out of it. We went to We went to Target and I purchased $5 Lego kits for both of the kids. They picked whichever Lego kit they wanted, and we all built it. And then all of a sudden, I started using those characters in the game, so that it's something they recognized. And then all of a sudden, now mind you, uh, I have a I have an addiction just like everybody else in this dang game. And I have started to. I got the bug for Dwarven Forge a little too late in the game, but I have the bug now, and it's dangerous. Um, and you guys don't need it because you craft everything, and it's amazing. But for people who like me
You
who
are
don't know
Dwarven
how to
Forge.
do that, you buy Dwarven Forge. And I was like, roll a d2 or roll a d4, and they said okay. And then as soon as they rolled a d4, I said okay, go in that box and grab me 4 pieces. So they were getting up, grabbing pieces, and they were trying to put them together. And we'd work a little bit, and then after both of the kids would get their pieces, we'd move the story forward. And then they get the pieces together, and then we move the story forward. And it kind of gave me enough time to think on my feet long enough to go, okay, these 6 pieces have laid down. What do I do with this now? Um, but yeah, I would suggest 3, 4. You could probably start very simple, 1 to 2 die max. Don't really put any extra stats to it, and just tell a story.
But to that end, though, James, it sounds like they've already done this for adults now. They're doing the exact same thing. Yeah, they have their game at the table. They have, everything in the Citadel, but they bring that extra level of interaction because they have the jungle to work with. They
Yeah,
have, you can explain more of that. You have so much, so much of property to work with.
yeah. You have so much property to work with. It's crazy. Um, I mean, we were talking about it last night. Uh, what are some of your guys' ideas? Because like, what are some things that you would be able to do at the jungle that you couldn't do at a normal
Oh
table?
my God. Okay. So, wow, that's a big, big,
Just
big
give us like
question.
3 examples.
3 examples.
Well, I can tell you right away, like our plans for building this place, that's one thing. We'll get to that in a second. But even what we could do right now. So in our latest event, the one I was mentioning with Jason, uh, because we already have this kind of fantasy sculpture wonderland. So I mentioned briefly the amphitheater, and this is an enormous broken egg.
Mhm.
So eggshell protruding out of the ground with cracked off pieces. We've got a fire pit in the middle that's an old Willys Jeep, but it's completely sculpted. It looks totally real, which we do big bonfires in, and the whole thing's covered in sculptures on the outside. We have a playable board game that feels like an entire like city playground size area, and it's built out of tunnels. And as you enter in through the mouth of this giant worm, you start playing games, and as you do these little challenges, they send you down through the board game, and you walk through it as you play. And it's educational. We've designed it for kids to be educational and fun, but also something that they can do with parents or grandparents, so that whole family can be together. And we we have a music recording studio in the shape of a giant brain. We have a fire pit jungle book temple with Mowgli and Bagheera and Shere Khan and King Louie and all of that in there, jamming on instruments and playing. So we have this amazing place already. Where
Mystique and the hot spring.
oh, we built an artificial cave, and you go inside, and we built a volcano inside that spills hot water down into a 12-person hot tub, and all around are 4 magical worlds, like elemental creatures, the air village and the fire people that live inside the volcano, and the earth tribe that cultivate using giant snails. And it's all little miniature sculptures we've made, like whole little villages. Super, super magical stuff. So in our events, we're able to do these real life in character adventure quests, which feed into the game. So we have our session 0 where you meet the other players. We talk about the structure of the thing and do our table safety, all of that really important stuff. And then before we even have session 1, we go on an adventure in the jungle.
Oh, That's awesome.
And you're walking around in full character, playing the character you're going to be for the whole rest of the week. And you're visiting the enchanted spring to capture a vial of potion of water breathing. And you have to solve puzzles and figure out, do challenges. We did this amazing thing. We went into the recording studio and just had a musical challenge where everybody picks up an instrument and just starts going for it. And it's people there who are like, I'm not musical, I don't know what I'm doing, but they forgot all of that. Creating something amazing, and they managed to convince the bard in the story, like the NPC, to help them, for inspiring him, and we moved the whole thing forward. And then you go into your game sessions, having spent an afternoon running around as your character. Like you can't imagine the instant immersion.
Oh, I can imagine.
I'm just picturing that moment too when I actually like had a real machete and started bushwhacking, and they just kind of look at me like a real sword, like I normally do.
It's like a whole day of
Yeah,
LARPing,
we
and you just
got,
go back
like,
in to play
real
with
weapons
on the table.
here.
Yeah, so that's what we're already doing. We have this amazing canvas here. We're 185 acres, 74 hectares of jungle valley, which we collectively own and have been building this amazing village on for years. And so we have this incredible resource that we can pull from to create an experience like nothing anybody on Earth has ever been a part of before.
Right.
And so the citadel and all of these sculptures and various different sort of features we have here are magical. They really help you immerse in. We have a review from the participants of the February event, and they say the words unique and immersive so many times you forget what they mean. But this thing, it's like you mentioned before, right? Like we're living this real life adventure out here, and we're pushing ourselves and discovering the limits of what's possible, and discovering that we're having a really hard time finding limits. and that's like a self-feeding mechanism in a way. So the more we try to fail, we plan these enormous projects and these crazy deadlines and like making more and more magical stuff, and we try to make it impossible, and then we end up pulling it off. Living that constantly causes you to start dreaming more. I think a lot of people in the modern day and age have become a little bit jaded about life and have stopped dreaming, or at least their dreams shrink down as life beats them down. I used to be that way, so I'm not speaking from some high horse or something. I used to be very, very disconcerted by how tough life could be, and I think a lot of people live that reality that can make dreaming more difficult. And one of the many blessings of living the life that we live, and I do feel very blessed to live the life that I live here, is that dreaming muscle and that capacity to let go of all the self-limiting stuff means that we find ourselves almost automatically seeing more and more and more possibility. And so we're here in this high fantasy citadel, and there's artifacts on the shelves and all kinds of crazy stuff. But then in one of those sessions Benji was mentioning, where we're sitting around the table just throwing ideas, I'm saying, I've been listening to a fair bit of Cthulhu lately. I don't think a Cthulhu game would be fully immersive in this environment, or even a Barovia Strahd campaign if you're really into D&D or whatever. Like, I think we need a Gothic cathedral. I'm seeing like big arched spires and like creepy gargoyles, and like you go inside and it just feels like bats are going to fly out at you, something like that. And then he's like, well, that would be really cool, but what about for sci-fi? We love sci-fi as well. It's like, should we build a moon base? And and then we go down the rabbit hole together, and I'm seeing a gaming space like 4 or 5 times the size of the one we're sitting in now, which is sort of 5 meters across, where there's a sandy floor in the center, like a barbarian fighting pit with a table right in the middle. And we've got sort of amphitheater style stadium seating around like a real coliseum where we can get like 50 people in to watch, live. Because another incredible part of this game is it's the community you feel around the table, but it's also the community that extends beyond the table. And that's why actual plays are so popular, and why things like Faster Purple Worm Kill Kill, or these kind of events that happen at Gen Con or wherever, where you get a room full of people and the vibe is just like electric because
Right.
the community extends beyond the table.
Mm-hmm.
And we've realized that bringing people here to experience the Citadel is just step number one. We could be holding the world's premier TTRPG festivals here, where we have, not just one more of these ideas that we're throwing around, but all of them. Why not have the Gothic Cathedral and the Moon Base and the Barbarian Fighting Pit and the Citadel and God knows what else?
Build them all.
Build it
There's
all.
no.
Just build it all.
Let's build it all. Come build it with us. We do annual art events for free, by the way, where people come down and help us paint our year's project. We've even done month-long events where we get people who have never touched art before and they come and sculpt with us as well. We haven't done one of those in a
That would
couple
be
of
fun.
years, but it's really community focused. We want to share all of this with the world, and we want to grow the possibility of this place so that it becomes exactly that thing where people in our community are planning their year, and they've got Gen Con on the cards, they've got San Diego, they've got whatever, all of these incredible events out there, and they go, you know what? I hope I can make Gen Con this year because I have to go down to
Going
the
to Peru.
Going to Peru.
It's the Amazon. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? This isn't just an event. This isn't just an excursion. It's everything. It's all put in one. And that to me is what really got me interested in even looking at the idea. I was like, okay, RPG in the jungle. What is this? Because I've seen other tour versions of D&D before where they pick a module and we're going to go run this module in a place that feels and seems to be very similar to what we're playing. And in all honesty, where I saw them when they decided to pick the jungle, I was like, I'm never going. It's 96 degrees outside. You're playing in a area where there's just the tent over to keep the bugs out and a table. No, not doing it. And then I found you. And I was like, okay, now this is different. This is an immersive world that I've not thought about. This gives me the same feeling that I would get in D&D in a castle, but in a much different and much more unique atmosphere than I would normally see. And
It's also luxury down here. I mean, we don't have tents and
right.
we live in luxury. We figured out how to construct in this place where you feel like you're waking up in a $10,000 a night hotel with a view overlooking some majestic valley. And our buildings are made of Maya, where it's just like screened in. So you get an open air environment all the time and you can hear the jungle, but you're also protected from everything, right?
Right.
It's super cozy with nice bedding and all that. It's super luxury. And these are our private homes. These are the rooms we live in. These are our kitchen facilities. This is we've created. You'd have to come check
Paradise.
it out.
I think
yeah,
the word is
Yes.
paradise.
Yeah, and you mentioned a good point as well. It's like South America can be a little bit scary for people. It's you especially in the US. I used to live in the US for many years. I know a lot of people from the US, and it shocked me at first how a lot of people there have a kind of skewed, I would say, perception of other countries. There's a lot of fear, and people think, well, the jungle, is that going to be incredibly afraid of animals? Um, we've been living here for 13 years, more than a dozen people for most of that time. Not a single person has been bit by a spider or snake or anything. I think you step on ants sometimes.
They bite.
They bite you and they suck and you like squash them and then whatever. But it's not a dangerous place in that way. People think, what if a jaguar eats me? Don't worry about it.
Look, I just have a laugh because I'm from Canada. I used to work in the Rocky Mountains all the time, and I would think, oh, South America, dangerous. And I'm like, man, I was out there with grizzly bears and mountain lions, and like, it's way more dangerous in Canada and the US than it is here. Wildlife,
Yeah, even like coyotes are way more dangerous than anything you would meet out here, right?
Yeah.
Plus, we're also in the cloud forest. We're in the high jungle, so we're not down in the deep Amazon basin, which has a well-earned perception for being full of mosquitoes and very, very sticky and hot and uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the cloud forest, which means it's an ideal climate. It's oh gosh, Fahrenheit. How does Fahrenheit work?
I don't know. It's perfect.
32 degrees
Perfect.
plus
Butterflies.
minus whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. You can wear shorts at night, and it's never so hot that you wish you weren't alive. Let's put it that way. And I think the other thing that people can get quite scared about is people believe that it's dangerous in South America because of the people. Like, am I going to get kidnapped? Am I going to get whatever, harmed in some way? And we live in somewhere safer than just about every US city.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So Tarapoto, which is the town right nearby to us, we have this really cute form of transport through the villages here. We're a little bit out of the city. We're in a mountain valley nearby. And there's something called a colectivo, which is kind of like a jungle taxi or bus, which is like a pickup truck. And we used to catch the colectivo into town sometimes. And so it goes really, really early, like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And so you're riding in the back of this pickup truck into the city, and you get into Tarapoto, which is it's a couple 100,000 people. It's a big place. At 5 in the morning, nothing's open. There's nowhere to go. And the women who live here would feel perfectly comfortable going to the park in the middle of the city and sitting on a park bench alone for a couple of hours before the cafes open.
Wow.
And so like that just maybe gives you a little bit of perspective. I think there's a big disconnect between the perception of the area that we're in Peru, and the reality, because I don't think I've ever felt safer walking around somewhere at night. So I would put people's minds at ease. If you want to live a real life adventure and feel like Western comfort and safety, this is the place to do it.
I mean, you're pulling an arm that's already pulled behind.
Sign me
I'm
up.
just like, how do I get that?
Well, I know you're a pretty adventurous guy. You're in the military. I think there's a lot of people out there that are a little bit insecure about their own abilities. Am I going to be okay out there? And I just want to let them know that we've got you. From start to finish. We want to give people a real life adventure where they feel like they're at least as heroic as their character, but also to feel safe and to feel like they're taken care of, and to feel like we treat you the same way we would treat our own mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, because that's the kind of a life that we've built for ourselves out here in community.
So cool. I didn't even get. So here's the crazy thing. We're already almost to our hour. I haven't even gotten through the first 3 questions yet. Like, this has been so cool.
Honestly, James, I think they kind of already.
They did cover these all.
They covered all the bases.
Yeah, you did. You covered all the bases without me asking the questions. The 3 questions, just if you're curious, is when did you start? What kind of got you the bug? Like, what was the one thing that really caught your attention? And then when did you become a game master?
You answered all of it.
Answered all that. So,
Yeah.
but
But
in a way that was very much more
typical.
organic than normal, which was great.
Yeah,
Uh,
cool.
so, what I'm curious for you, Andy, you've been playing, you've been running games for a while, and your games, as you said last night, were 6 hours on average.
Oh yeah, yeah. We play religiously every week. We usually hit the 6 hour mark. Sometimes we go a little over. You know, you got to hit that climactic moment.
Like, yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, six on average.
What would you say is your number one tip to keep people engaged?
Ooh, okay. Again, this is also something that's evolved over time because I used to think that it was up to me to keep everybody engaged, and that if I wasn't descriptive enough or if I didn't do good enough voices or whatever, all of these like traps you fall into in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, right? Then it wouldn't be a good game. But actually, you've answered this question for me a little earlier in the conversation because what I found is the absolute critical thing to do is to give the players agency in guiding the story. And I have a role in that by introducing elements that connect to backstory or by paying attention to what the players say at the table and then opening the space for them. Uh, so, for example, in our current home game, we have a Pathfinder 2 game. One of my characters, who's actually that guy right there, that 7 foot orc standing over Benji's shoulder, is a dragon instinct barbarian. And in our last level up, um, I kind of went around the horn on the table and got everybody to do what Benji was referring to earlier, this narrative level up, where instead of just telling us what cool new abilities you got, which is very fun, tell me over the next week or so, as you sort of feel your powers settling in, feel yourself growing inside, what do we see as we have this kind of like vignette window into your world and we catch those small moments, the moments that don't usually appear during role play around the table. We see Descartes um, training, interacting with other people, give us a little window. And he blew me away. He's one of my players that used to really not dive into the role play much at all. But since we started opening up this
Mhm.
narrative space where instead of telling people what happens, I ask them. It's like, uh, what do we see now? And I give him as long as he wants to just lay out um, where Descartes is going, what he's doing, what he's thinking about. And he completely surprised me. He he told me that he's out hunting. In every spare moment he has, he's going into taverns and asking for rumors of dragons. And he's trying to find bounty hunters, monster hunters, to ask them where there have been dragon sightings because he wants to go and find a black dragon. He wants to grow his powers. And this was kind of foreshadowing for his character for some of the powers he'd be growing into. And instead of going, oh, cool, that's really cool, man. I said, give me 5 minutes. And I went straight searching for maps and pulling things together. And we immediately, mid level up, in between people's narrative descriptions of their level up, we went on an adventure to go and find the dragon he'd been talking about. And we had this crazy encounter completely centered around him, where we went and found this dragon he needed to capture the essence of by his own telling. I didn't tell him he needed to capture anything. And we went on an adventure, huge tangent, and we spent the rest of the session finding that dragon, hunting it down, and getting him what he needed narratively for his character to complement what he needed mechanically. And I think for him, that was a big buy-in moment where he went, oh, whatever I say really, really matters here. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't just ask me like as a passing thing. He turned it into a part of the game where we took a huge tack and everybody was involved. And then that impetus, that personal moment that we opened up for him meant that when it came to the final blows in that battle, people were delaying their turn so that he could be the one to stride up and decide what
Oh,
he wanted to do and take that final moment there. I let them know that it was close, and then he was able to do his thing. And it was this big personal climactic moment. So it's a combination of listening and then thinking on your feet and finding ways to really pay off your player's investment.
so we started using this, and this is a technique that I've not used. I used, but I didn't know that there was a term for it. And Chuck uses as well. It's called Stars and Wishes, and that has become one of my favorite things to ask players. What is the next thing you're looking forward to in a game? What is the next thing you're looking forward to? And even if you don't give it to them that right next game, as soon as you sprinkle that in, it's like it didn't matter how many game sessions it was. Their eyes light up, stars go over their head. Like there's just an elation that you're paying attention to them, and I think you're absolutely right with that. And when they see that what they're actually contributing to the story matters, um, it's a buy-in that you can't get by just handing somebody a reward. You just can't do it. It's different.
And it has a knock-on effect as well, because the other players at the table see that. And then they're like, oh, okay, let me go away between sessions and start thinking about what my character really wants, because that was really cool. And I participated in his story in a way that enriched the story for me. And then what I start to see in the table is this kind of ping pong effect of, as we do these things, each player is starting to buy in more to the other players' backstories as well. And we have this cohesion forming, which wasn't there before, where we were an adventuring, but well, not me. I'm the enemy, but they're an adventuring party in many ways, but it becomes more personal. It becomes something with a personal buy-in that's not demanded by the game. It's fully optional, but I think for that reason, and because people buy in of their own volition, it's that much more valuable.
Yeah. So this year we have really been focusing on the game master, but I'm gonna not do that at the moment. What is one thing that you're looking forward to in the next game, Benji?
Put him on the spot.
Like our next home game? Is that your
Yeah,
question?
yeah. Or what's the next thing you want to see your character do in the next home in your home
The
game?
next thing my character.
Hmm.
I have a pretty interesting character in the game. He's a war priest cleric of Callistria, who's the goddess of lust and vengeance and all this thing. He is currently building his own temple in the bottom of Citadel Fury, actually, which is this place. And his temple is becoming quite ornate. He went on one of these quests Andy's talking about to round up some divine priestesses of the goddess of lust in the basement of the Citadel. So it's getting pretty wild and amazing down there. What's my censorship level on this?
Love it.
I absolutely love
So
this.
he's going to continue to develop this temple, but ultimately he's looking forward to becoming more and more one with his goddess. He's trying to read her and how he can serve her and how he can basically manipulate the whole adventuring party to serve her. So he's becoming more powerful. I think we're at level 16 now. So the blessings that I am bestowing upon the rest of the party through my goddess is starting to twist them at a certain angle, looking at her to maybe be thinking about becoming a follower of his goddess as they become more powerful through this process. There's also the fact that they would get to engage more with the priestesses of Callistria.
I was just about to say they want to go down to the dungeon.
They just want to go down to the dungeon. That's what they want to do.
Yeah, Angus is building a big kinky dungeon in the basement,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, he's becoming closer and closer to his goddess, and he has an ultimate goal in mind. which I don't think I will share here
No
quite
worries.
yet.
That's
But
fine.
You don't have to.
Got to keep the you got to keep the game master a
yeah,
little.
yeah. It's
You know,
I'm hoping for an extremely climactic finish to this adventure.
that can be taken in so many ways.
In more ways than one.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's my thing with what we were talking about is now we have players coming up with goals that their characters actually have, and then finding ways that in your narrative you can explore those goals without it making no sense. And it's cool to find out when you start seeing, and I know Andy, you probably have the same experience. Even if all the characters started different, all of a sudden threads start to connect and mix, and you're like, I did not plan any of that to happen. But then all of a sudden you're seeing, well, this person knows this person, and this person knows this person, and they meet there, then they both know this and then it becomes a, that crazy conspiracy theory board on your wall. And you're like, okay, draw the lines and try to see where the dots fit, and that's a lot of fun, and I look forward to hearing the climax to that adventure. I'm gonna use that. So, yeah. So we've passed 10 o'clock here, and that means it's open for happy hour. What happy hour is 30 minutes after the show, where the audience can ask any questions they'd like to Benji, Andy, myself, or Chuck. Preferably tabletop related, but it's a tavern. Ask away. I don't really care what it is.
Happy hour.
They're going to ask about the dungeon. I just know it.
Yeah, they're going to ask about the dungeon. It's okay. Chuck's going to have a couple questions, I'm sure, that he's eating, biting at the bit over there to ask. And if we don't get any questions, we have a set of questions that we'll ask you to roll a die for, and see what kind of fun stuff we can come up with for our last bit with you guys.
All
So,
right,
Cool.
while the questions are coming in, go for it, Chuck.
fire away.
Yeah, so mine's kind of a two-parter question, and this could end up being a rabbit hole, so, whatever it is. And you can both answer this from both a DM and a player perspective. So essentially, it's what's your highest high and what's your lowest low as a player or as a DM, running tables. I love that look. It's the look of love. I love.
Well, I don't want to bullshit you, basically. I really want to feel your question and answer honestly.
No, everyone acts the exact same way. Like everyone gets that question, like, oh shit, I really got to think about that one.
That
You
means
know
it's
what
a
we
good
might
question.
have to start doing with that question, Chuck? Is that
Take it
might have to
first?
be well, no, that might have to be going in the pre-email so people can think about that one. And be
Oh yeah,
ready
make them
for
think about it. Like have this one ready.
Hmm. I think the highest high I've already spoken to you about.
Mhm.
It's those moments like I had
Mm.
in our first D&D game where real emotion comes to the table.
Yep.
And I think that's still my favorite because I think it's a combination of uh, the power of that moment, stand alone, how it just shook me and brought me to tears and surprised me in that way. But it's also because it was formative for me.
Mhm.
It really changed me and the way that I see the game and the way that I feel the game became a lot more important for me that day. Um, because I could really begin to feel the potential it has to change and improve my life and the players at my table's life. And if we continue to dare to grow this thing and to lean into this, and we have plans to do exactly that, a far wider field of people in addition.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Where we're having all kinds of wild, big dreams at the moment that involve actual play, that involve creating a new character development system that really maximizes on all the things we were talking about earlier, bringing personal development into the game for people who really want that. And I think there's a good number of people that will. So that for me is really it. That's the thing, that formative moment, and the moments that sort of like reverberate down through time that we've created since then.
Mhm.
Um, the lowest for me would have to be some of my earlier mistakes I made, and I love making mistakes. It's the best. It's how you learn. But I've made some mistakes where I've really, because I didn't have a strong enough grasp on my ability to bob and weave with my players in the beginning. There have been some times where I've really cut people's wings or said no
Mm.
to things in the game where I really didn't need to.
Right.
If I'd been a little more relaxed and open, I would have been able to find ways to let my players guide the game better, and to be more collaborative. Instead of just saying no because I wasn't quite sure how to make it work or I was afraid it would break something. So that's just a feels bad kind of moment. I feel like I've really not done my job, because the feeling for a player when they really try to improve the game and add their own magic to it, and then they get shut down, it's a distinctly unpleasant feeling as a game master to have done that to somebody that's trusting you to hold a space and give them a place where they can express themselves and feel like a little kid again. We
Mhm.
kind of go to this vulnerable place inside when we truly step into a game at the table where, Benji was pulling back earlier to a time where he was a little kid and he was finding these books and devouring them and drawing out the monsters or whatever. And that's like it can bring us back to our inner child to sit at the table and be fully open. And then you also, when you have a bunch of little kids sitting around you, you have the ability to kind of reach back through time and crush that child. And so it is a responsibility as well. I really want my players to be able to fully release themselves into that place and feel the childlike wonder and amazement of losing yourself in a fantasy world. Um, and and if you squash that magic inside, I think it's kind of a tragic thing to do. And I've made that mistake in the past. So I hope to never do that again. I'm going to keep making mistakes, but hopefully not that one.
And
Those the
for
reason the
me,
part of the reason I asked for that lowest low is because you do get to kind of express those one of those lessons learned, and some of the typical trappings of early GMing maybe, or just a situation that happened just you didn't expect, and to be able to tell somebody that is kind of gets them prepared,
Chuck's
if that makes
Chuck's on a
sense.
personal journey right now to get every single tip that people give here and use it in his games.
Yeah.
He's a brand new game master and he is taking everything like a sponge, which is amazing.
It's
So
a noble goal, a very noble goal.
yeah, but he's doing a
I
great
All right,
will
job.
Benji, your turn.
share I will share my highest high and lowest low, kind of in the context of one story when I wrap them together. But what ended up happening through the game was I'm the cleric, right? My responsibility is to keep these guys alive. And I've done a phenomenal job considering some of the shit that these guys have gotten into. But there was one moment in particular I can remember, and this is when we really started diving into like, okay, like let's get deeper into role play. Let's get deeper into feeling our characters. Let's get deeper into like embodying this character I'm playing. And it's so easy to always be on kind of a joyful laughter, having fun, running around, killing stuff, getting more powerful, this kind of level of things. But there was one moment when I couldn't heal one of my companions. I couldn't. I literally cast just about every spell I had and threw everything at him as I was watching him die, right? And he's getting his ass kicked. And there's something about his character that ended up preventing this. And like, I could feel the frustration in me as I was playing this whole scenario out. And at the end of the combat, he survived, you know. But at the end of the combat, I had this moment where I had the choice to either let it go or dive into what is happening inside me and through my character. And I lost my shit at him. Like I was angry at him, and I literally looked over at him at the table and started basically berating him and yelling at him like, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Like, what, why are you making these choices? Like, I can't help you, I can't heal you, you're sitting there dying. And I'm getting more and more and more emotional and angry, just like, you know. And it was really cool because I made the choice to dive into that frustration through my character. And it wasn't joyful. Like the whole table was silent. Everyone was stern, just watching this interaction. The other player was just like, holy shit, man. Like I'm getting angry at him. And that was my lowest low as my character. But it was also my highest high through role playing. You know, it was like,
Sure.
holy shit, I
Yeah.
took this moment and was able to live this viscerally through my character and let out all the frustration of not being able to do my job, not being able to save this guy. And at the end of the whole thing, when the energy cleared, it was like, whoa, man, I'm happy I can go there because it's not always about just heroic shit and being powerful, but it's about feeling what's going on in your own heart through your character
Hmm.
and going to those deep emotional spaces. And that's where the real juice hits, right? That's
Yeah.
where real magic happens in the game. And that's where I'm realizing like you can actually channel things inside you that are kind of blocked through your character to be able to open yourself up more to this stuff. So yeah, it was a dual experience for me. It was really cool. I won't forget it.
Oh yeah, no, you don't ever forget that first moment. Uh, I mean, it's always interesting, and I won't talk much about this, but it's always interesting as the game master, and then all of a sudden you've created an NPC that players are either not liking or they don't like the decision you're making, and you've got three people yelling at you, and you're like, okay, I could get angry about this, or I could dive into whatever this character is feeling to try to figure out how this NPC is actually going to react to this. And yeah, that's definitely the case a lot of times. Is you're like, okay, you take a deep breath and figure out how I'm going to respond to this because this is a lot, and the emotion does get ahead of you sometimes.
And that can require the disclosure before game, like, hey, when game starts, anything I say can't be taken back. It's not towards you.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And living in a community like yours where you can't leave everybody, that might be a little harder sometimes. It's like, hey, sorry, last session was rough. You stay on this side of the jungle. I'll stay on this side of the jungle for a day, and let's let the heat calm before we all meet up and eat dinner. Like, whew, yeah. I've had a couple characters that are like they were so mad at me at the end of the session. They're like, if it wasn't for the fact that you were on on the other side of the world in a different screen, I would have punched you in the face. And I was like, you know what? I'll take that. I'm good with this.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a good time. Uh, my last big hurrah with that was in our Dressed Quest campaign right now. The party was dealing with a conflict between two rival tribes. They decided to kind of put on this trial of champions to see which tribe was going to take over both, and they succeeded in killing the tribal leader that they thought was wrong. What they didn't know is after they were rewarded for that, that the tribal leader that had walked out of the arena was massacred by the big bads that are currently in the entire campaign. And the fact that they had been working so hard to get this achieved to have their achievement succeed and then fail at the same time, they were very angry with me. um, but the story was, it definitely gave a good ending to one of our players who had to step away for some personal reasons, who is now grooming the daughter of the chieftain who took over the tribes. So now we have this character who's now doing something in the background, making this story continue, even though they're not even there at this point. So it was definitely a cool experience. We're still in happy hour. There's still people in here. Somebody's got to have questions. Otherwise, we're starting dice. And I will say my questionnaire has grown since this episode because I've got more ideas. So there's always that. So as we're waiting on questions, one of you grab your dice and roll me a d20.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, we're rolling click clacks now. Let's roll. Maybe I need to start with that. Roll a die. Our guest from last week actually, that's how he brings every game in. He wants you to start rolling dice within the first 15 minutes, and it's so cool.
No, that's Benji. 11.
11. Well, this is kind of. I mean, we could have this. This works. What's your favorite character you are currently playing?
Angus.
Angus.
This guy.
Okay.
He.
We're gonna flip this a little bit. Andy,
Okay.
what is your favorite NPC in your current campaign that you're currently playing?
Oh God.
Go through the Rolodex. It's okay.
Right, go through the Rolodex.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Pull out the tablets.
Okay. Oh God, how to choose. I think my favorite at the moment is a character that didn't exist in our campaign proper until I invented her a couple months ago in response to Benji's narrative level up. It's a character. She's named Lyrian. She's the leader of the Saffron Sting, which is an organization devoted to the worship of Calistria, his goddess in the city of Kintargo. And so when Benji told me Angus wanted to find priestesses, and he referenced that they're a special type of priestess, right?
Right.
Worship of his goddess is visceral, let's say. But I didn't want to create some tawdry kind of base thing. Lyrian is the leader of this organization of women who are extremely proficient in their craft, but they're more akin to like spies or courtesans in like a royal court or something, where these incredibly sought after individuals. And Lyrian is this incredible matron character. So our adventuring party are the least subtle gang you can imagine. They face every issue as if it requires a sledgehammer. And Lyrian was attempting to school Angus in his lady's appreciation of the subtle. And she had great fun doing that because he decided that summoning an avatar of his goddess in the middle of her very discreet and elite party that they had crashed would be an appropriate way to prove his devotion to the goddess. And she dressed him down in the most severe and embarrassing way in front of the entire party and sent him away. He only just managed to not be excommunicated from her organization forever. And he eventually turned her around, but she's super cool. And I feel that she's going to have a place in our lore going forward, which, God, how to express this? I think this is an individual that will end up spanning the planes. Because we have in recent months, actually ever since RPG in the Jungle February, have started dreaming of a realm an entire setting and have started creating that. And it ties in some really spectacular ways into our home game.
That's
Because
awesome.
when you come to RPG in the Jungle, you play in Citadel Fury, which is a location. It's the Citadel owned by the Knights of Fury, which are our adventuring party.
Ah,
And when you come to RPG in the Jungle, you're actually in our home game world. And I'm going to use a phrase now that we're still developing exactly what that means. But this place here in the Peruvian Amazon, simultaneously in Citadel Fury in our game world, is shaping up to be a nexus of all things.
it's like the tavern.
Yes. And what that means is when you come down here to adventure with us, whether you end up traveling to the Forgotten Realms or to Galarian or to God knows what realm, you'll be traveling there from Citadel Fury.
Mm,
And this Lyrian character is key to this concept. So I'm having
nice.
big fun with her. She has an important role to play, in addition to the fact that she's just a bad bitch that's having big fun schooling him.
We're flirting.
Love it.
We've just gotten started.
We've just got it started. Um, yeah. So still, it seems like people are are listening, but it doesn't seem like anybody's got any questions.
Okay.
So roll the die.
Oh, it's my turn. 15.
Ooh, this is one of my favorite questions. Chuck will know immediately when I say it too. How do you deal with death and lethality at your table?
Oh, okay. This is the best possible question you could have asked. Okay. So we have a pretty unique situation here. I have a couple of people at my table who are somewhere on the spectrum. So one who's quite strongly on the spectrum and another who's a little. And it's been incredible for me as a game master as a kind of tool to guide my evolution because um, people on the spectrum have some very specific kind of needs. And one of them is for strong reference points. What that means is if my character dies and that's taken away from me, that's my main anchor in this world that we're in. And that can be very, very distressing.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a real challenge for me because basically I had players telling me my character can't die because that's going to be a big real world problem for me. I'm not going to be able to cope with that. So I was stuck, man. I was like, what the hell? Like how am I supposed to maintain stakes in a world where you're going up against terrible monsters and your life's on the line all the time if I can't kill you? And I had to think about it long and hard, but what we landed on was I'm going to give each of you an out that you don't have to take. But in our world, an ancient event whereby one of the gods attempted to overthrow the god of death, the veil between worlds was made more porous in both directions. Usually it's a one-way trip. In our game, if you are killed, your party members have 10 minutes in game, which is an eternity when you're in combat, as everyone knows.
Right.
10 minutes to eliminate whatever threats are taking your attention and perform a ritual over your body that requires at least one living member of your party. So even if you get a total wipe except for one character, it's possible for that one character to perform the ritual over your body and pull you back from the gates of death, which you can refuse that call. But if you take it, and you are pulled back, and it's an awesome opportunity for me to narrate all kinds of crazy death experiences. Big fun. So amazing golden line there where I was able to like milk juice out of this. What was a problem became an opportunity. If you find yourself at the gates of death and called back by your companions, you suffer a permanent disability. So I have a special table that my players roll on if this happens, and it's happened a handful of times, whereby you're either going to be taking a permanent -1 to your modifier for one of your primary stats, you're going to be taking a permanent movement penalty to your character as you're made less mobile forever, or you're going to lose one of your feats or something like that. So it allows for that continuity to be there for my players who need it. While at the same time, one of my characters, that guy there, the big barbarian who's always up the front getting in trouble, has died a couple times and come back. And one of the times he came back, he got a permanent -1 to his strength. So he feels that every day of his adventuring career. And that was, I found a way to maintain the stakes and still cater to that very specific need that one of my players had. And I'm grateful for that because it's actually brought a lot of richness to the table. And any player who feels that they wish to have that more traditional experience of, whoops, they couldn't bring me back in time and I'm gone, they can do that. They can either describe for themselves what pulls them deeper into the afterlife, or they can throw it back to me and say, I don't think I'm making it back this time. What does that look like? And then I can create whatever impediment to returning or whatever, against the efforts of the party, perhaps, to attempt to bring them back. So it's actually enriched the game, where I thought I had a terrible problem.
That's awesome. I mean, it's great, and it's been a question that has been, and surprisingly, it's been rolled multiple times. That we've had this question come up, and there's so many unique ways to deal with the idea of death. Some people agree that you got to leave the stakes there. Other people state there's the we're walking into the sunset moment where yes, you didn't die, but you were at the brinks of death, and instead of you continuing to adventure and risk your life every day, you said, hey, you know what, maybe I'll just retire and go be a baker. Like, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But I like the idea that you give your players the opportunity to say, I can retire this character is gone, he's not coming back, or he can come back, but you're going to remember that he wasn't here at one point. So, and that brings in a whole other portion of the story.
So this is really it's amazing what happens when you open yourself up. I feel like one of my biggest failings as a GM in the beginning was being too rigid. I was afraid that I would mess things up, and I wanted to adhere to things very strictly. And what I've found now is the more I allow myself to not be bound by those rigid rules, the more opportunities present themselves. So now we're coming up with this new realm that we're designing, and it's incredibly unique. I don't think anything like it exists in the space. We're not at the place to be sort of revealing the details yet, but this death and dying kind of conundrum I found myself in is inspiring the next step of that necessary evolution for our home game, whereby now, where before I had this most allergic reaction to the idea of taking death off the table, now I feel like I have to do it, because if we follow with what we've been doing in our game, but then I add this layer on top and that layer on top, and like, what happens if when you're back from the brink of death, it's visible on your body? Like, there's no way to hide that. If you've come back, then everybody knows that you've come back. And there's probably people in the world that find that very offensive. So now I'm able to create
there's a
stakes.
world version, world-based change if that happens now.
It's a global stake. that it changes the shape of the entire world, not just of our sort of meta at our own personal table.
Right.
And I find that really interesting because I wasn't free to explore that kind of idea before because I was too afraid of what it might mean for my world. But if at a table full of people who are there for collaboration and to create story and powerful experience together and who are all good-willed, there's nothing you can do that will ruin the game. Because if it doesn't work, you tweak it, you shift the focus, you make it work, because we're all there for the same reason.
Right.
Yeah.
This has been an amazing adventure we've had here for the last hour and a half, talking about the the creativeness of what RPG in the Jungle is, to getting into some very deep conversations on how to make your stories feel more immersive and how to tell the story a little differently. Not to mention some extra GM tips for your next table. Hopefully those will help you on your next game. Real quick though, as we wrap up, Andy, Benji, first off, thank you for coming on the tavern. Real quick, just give us a shout, give the audience a shout out. How do they find you? Where can they find out all this really cool stuff that's happening down in Peru?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we're really, really excited because if you jump over to rpginthejungle.com, you could see our next event, which is coming up. And we are so stoked to have Jason coming back. He blew us away. Amazing game master, amazing storyteller, brings a ton of emotion to the table. But in addition, we're also bringing the legendary Clint McElroy of the Adventure Zone, veteran game master, hilarious bastard, uh, just wonderful human being. It was fantastic, even just being able to speak to him in person after so many years of hearing him on the Adventure Zone entertaining us. We've got a double bill coming up this August, 18 to 24. You can get your tickets now at rpginthejungle.com. Over there as well, you can see everything about our facilities, the Citadel, which you just got the briefest glimpse of here. We have an awesome sort of quick look video that shows you all the amazing stuff around here, what you can expect, our facilities, all of that good stuff. You can catch us on Instagram. RPG in the Jungle is our handle. We're constantly throwing out new stuff over there as well. And we'd love to see you down here in the jungle. We're living a real life adventure, and you can too.
Sounds great. Don't pull my arm any farther. It's already behind my back. I'm super ready to go.
We'll
Load me
get you
up.
down here to run a game or two in the future, my
Would
friend.
love
Yeah,
it. Be great. This is Tavern Talks with RPG in the Jungle. I hope you guys really had a good time with this. I've learned a lot. I'm hoping everybody else in the audience did as well. Real quick, as we prepare to shut down tomorrow, Chuck's got another finishing the ship. Be
I
finishing
hope so.
the ship hopefully tomorrow during
But
Beaker
hopefully
builds.
the Going Merry will be worked on. Finished, I don't know.
Yeah,
But will be worked on.
will be worked on. And then if you like Dungeons and Dragons and you enjoy this kind of stuff, hop over on Monday nights, 8 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to continue our story in Icewind Dale as our players deal with a Dorgar invasion, a giant mechanical dragon, and the all-encompassing winter world of Icewind Dale. Come join us. Keep warm. And this is Tavern Talks. This is Last Call. We'll see you guys all next week for another fun episode and a new guest. Stick around, please, as we raid some friends.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.